Stand in front of a shelf of motor oil at any auto parts store, and the word synthetic appears on bottle after bottle, printed in the same confident font, regardless of price or brand sitting nearby. Most people assume that word points to one specific thing, some single process happening in one particular kind of factory somewhere out there. It doesn't work that way at all. Two bottles sitting right next to each other, both labeled full synthetic, can come from genuinely different raw materials and completely different manufacturing routes, and neither one is faking it or cutting corners. So what does synthetic actually mean once you look past the label printed on the front, and what's really happening to turn crude oil, natural gas, or simple chemical building blocks into something that can protect an engine for thousands of miles of driving? Let's get into it right here on Small Things. The uniform goal. Every bottle of motor oil, no matter what the label on the front actually says, starts with something called base oil, and base oil makes up most of what's genuinely inside that bottle by volume. Crude oil pumped from the ground is a chaotic mixture of hydrocarbon molecules in every shape and size imaginable, tangled together with sulfur and other impurities nobody wants anywhere near a running engine block. Refining that crude the ordinary way pulls out a usable lubricating fraction, but it never fully untangles that underlying mess of molecules. Synthetic production aims at something different from the very start. Molecules that are cleaner, more uniform, and more consistent with each other, rather than whatever chaotic mixture crude oil happened to arrive with from underground. Why mineral oil wasn't enough. It did not begin with a marketing decision made in a boardroom somewhere. It began with ordinary mineral oil simply failing under conditions it was never actually built to survive in the first place. Mineral oil thins out dangerously at high heat and thickens until it barely flows at all in extreme cold. And by the mid-20th century, jet aircraft engines were running hotter and under harsher conditions than any oil refined the traditional way could reliably handle for long. Germany's wartime shortage of crude oil had already pushed chemists there to experiment with building hydrocarbon chains directly from simpler gas molecules instead of only refining whatever came out of the ground. Early evidence that oil didn't strictly have to be dug up to exist at all. That idea found its real audience in aviation once the war had ended. Jet engines demanded a lubricant that wouldn't break down at extreme temperatures the way mineral oil reliably did, and only oil engineered specifically for that kind of punishment could actually survive it over repeated flights. Al Amatuzio, a jet fighter squadron commander who had seen firsthand what synthetic lubricants could do at high altitude and extreme temperature, believed the same protection belonged in ordinary car engines back down on the ground. In 1972, his company's 10W40 formula became the first synthetic motor oil in the world to meet the American Petroleum Institute's service requirements for automobiles, proving that a lubricant engineered from the ground up could genuinely outperform anything refined the conventional way from crude. That single product opened the door for an entire industry that followed close behind it. Other manufacturers began developing and releasing their own synthetic formulas through the mid-1970s and into the following decades, each one working from a slightly different starting material and a slightly different production process to reach the same basic goal of a more uniform, more temperature-stable oil. Mobil released its own competing synthetic formula by 1975, and from there, the market kept expanding as more companies entered it. The underlying question Amatuzio had effectively answered years earlier, whether oil genuinely had to come from crude at all to protect an engine properly, never fully closed again after that first can reach the shelves. It's still the exact question sitting underneath every single bottle on a modern store shelf today. whether the shopper standing in front of it realizes that or not. 3 routes, 1 requirement. So once a manufacturer decides to build oil rather than simply refine it, what does that actually involve? And are all synthetic bottles really made the same way? Not exactly, and the differences start right at the raw material. Crude oil can be pushed through a process called hydrocracking, using hydrogen gas under intense heat and pressure to break its tangled molecules apart and reassemble them into a cleaner, far more uniform structure than crude naturally offers on its own. Refined severely enough through repeated stages, this produces what the industry calls Group 3 base oil, still descended from crude, but stripped of most of its original impurities and considerably more consistent than anything ordinary refining alone could ever achieve by itself. It's genuinely high-performing oil in its own right, even though it technically never left the crude oil family tree at any point in the process. A second route skips crude oil almost entirely from the very start. Manufacturers begin with ethylene, a small, simple gas molecule, and use a carefully controlled chemical reaction to link those individual molecules into longer, identical chains called PAO. Because every chain gets built the exact same way, the resulting oil turns out remarkably uniform, holding its thickness across a wider range of temperatures than a crude-derived base oil typically manages, particularly in extreme cold weather. A third route starts even further from crude oil than either of the first two. Natural gas gets broken down into its most basic molecular pieces and rebuilt into small, stable hydrocarbon chains, a process that produces base oil so purified it can run nearly as clear as filtered water. Without the sulfur and aromatic compounds crude oil always carries along with it, no matter how carefully it's refined. Whichever of these 3 routes produces it, base oil alone still can't protect a running engine on its own. It has no way to keep metal surfaces clean, resist breaking down under oxygen and heat, or maintain a protective film when 2 parts grind against each other under real load. That essential work belongs entirely to what gets blended in next, after the base oil itself is already finished. Same word, different roads. It's tempting to assume that oil refined this severely from crude simply doesn't deserve to be called synthetic at all, that only oil built from something like ethylene truly earns the word on its label. In 1999, Mobil challenged a competitor's use of the word synthetic for oil made from severely refined crude, arguing before an industry advertising review board that only oil built from smaller molecules like ethylene should be allowed to carry that particular claim. The board disagreed with Mobil's position, ruling that oil produced through an intentional chemical transformation qualified as synthetic, regardless of which specific raw material it originally started from. That ruling didn't settle the argument among enthusiasts who still debate it online today, but it did establish that severely refined crude oil and oil built entirely from ethylene can both legitimately wear the same word on their label going forward. That doesn't mean every bottle carrying the exact same base oil route performs identically either, and it's worth being just as skeptical in that direction too. 2 manufacturers can both start with PAO, or both run crude through the exact same hydrocracking process and still end up with genuinely different finished oils, because how carefully a company blends, tests, and controls that process for consistency batch after batch varies just as much as the raw material choice ever did. The starting molecule tells you where an oil began. It was never a reliable way to guess how well the finished bottle actually turned out. What the additives actually do. Deep inside a running engine under heavy load, a zinc-based additive presses into place the instant 2 metal surfaces meet under real pressure. forming a film only molecules thick that keeps them from grinding directly against each other and slowly wearing away over thousands of miles. On a sub-zero morning in the dead of winter, a viscosity modifier blended into the oil keeps it flowing freely enough to reach every part of a cold engine within seconds of the key turning over, the same additive quietly preventing that same oil from thinning out too far once the engine finally reaches full operating temperature hours later on the highway. Pulling the dipstick after several months of regular driving, someone notices the oil has turned considerably darker than when it first went in fresh from the bottle. And rather than assuming the oil has failed outright, a mechanic explains that dark color often just means the detergents are doing exactly their job, carrying tiny combustion particles safely in suspension instead of letting them settle somewhere inside the engine and cause real damage. At a quality lab attached to a refinery, a technician runs a freshly blended batch of oil through a series of standardized tests, checking its viscosity at both extreme temperatures before signing off on a formula that won't reach a single bottle until it passes every measurement on the sheet in front of her. The complete system. That golden liquid going into an engine was never simply pumped from the ground, nor was it always assembled from nothing in a laboratory, depending entirely on which specific bottle happened to be sitting on the shelf that particular day. It's the result of breaking molecules apart deliberately, rebuilding them into something more uniform than nature provided, and blending in a chemistry package built to survive heat, cold, and constant friction long enough to actually matter over real miles. The word synthetic printed on the label was never the whole story by itself. The engine underneath the hood was always protected by the complete system built into that bottle, from the base oil's origin to the additive package blended in afterward, not by one single word printed across the front of it. If this changed the way you look at the oil in your own engine, let us know in the comments below what you want us to explore next. We might make it our next episode. Thanks for watching. History often hides in the smallest details.